Italy has expanded its response to the coronavirus by locking down the entire country. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte says that as of this morning, travel restrictions will apply to the whole of Italy and not just the north as before. More than 9,000 are infected with the virus and more than 460 people have died across the country.
Empty restaurant chairs, a common sight now in Italy, which has extended its emergency coronavirus measures to cover the whole country. Public gatherings are banned. Only bars, restaurants and cafes that guarantee customers can remain at least 1 metre apart can open, and all must close at dusk. On the eve of the bumped-up measures taking hold, for some diners, the last evening meal out for a while. Italy's Prime Minister outlined the measures and took the nation's youth to task.
I am about to sign a decree that we can sum up with the expression, "I stay at home." We understand that young people want to socialize. We have seen the images, photographs where the nightlife is, the fun, where they drink outside bars. It is no longer possible for us to allow this because of the risk of infection.
The measures also restrict people to all but essential travel. Commuting for work is allowed if people have documentation proving it's necessary.
I'm forced by my company to travel for work, so I must do it every day from Monday to Friday. The queue here at the gate is a problem. It's necessary, but makes it difficult to keep our distance and respect all the measures in place.
By telling the nation's 60 million people to stay at home until at least April, Italy, the country worst hit by the coronavirus after China, is hoping it can finally turn the tide.
Let's go right to Rome, where correspondent Philip Willen is standing by for us. Hi, Philip. Italy's emergency measures now apply not just to the north of the country, now to the entire country. So what are things like in Rome today?
Well, I've been out briefly this morning, and it's not immediately visible that something radical has changed. There's still people walking in the streets and a certain amount of traffic. But things are definitely quieter, and they have been now actually for a number of days, because I think a lot of the population has realized that the way to stop this virus is to stop having contact with strangers. Social contact is dangerous, and people, I think, are psychologically ready to stay at home now.
OK, but you said there are still some people on the streets. So what exactly does it mean that all of Italy is on lockdown? What can people do? What can they not do? Can they still travel to Italy or leave Italy?
It's a little bit unclear exactly how things are going to work and how you can enforce a quarantine on an entire country. The logistic challenge is enormous for the authorities. But the government has made it clear that they want to work through moral suasion. People must be convinced that this is the right thing to do, and therefore they must stay at home. Clearly, if there are very visible violations, people gathering for parties in the street and that kind of thing, the police would intervene immediately to shut them down. So it remains to be seen how things work out over coming days. But I think the message is you must cooperate with us. This is for everybody's good, and we're all in it together.
What about for tourists, Philip? Can they still get to Italy?
That's another interesting question. The government has said that anyone arriving in Italy will be questioned about the purpose of their visit. And clearly a holiday wouldn't be a valid work or health or personal reason to be coming into the country. So I think people should not be coming here for holidays. But if they need to visit relatives for serious reasons or they have important work to do, they would still be allowed in. And of course, it remains to be seen whether they would be able to leave again afterwards. But I think the assumption is that tourists in the country at the moment who want to go back to their country of origin would be allowed to go, assuming that the country is prepared to take them in.
And Philip, what are medical professionals saying about this, a countrywide lockdown? Do they think it will alleviate pressure on the healthcare system?
Yes, I think that's the fundamental consideration here. The health system in Lombardy, which is the most advanced and well organized in the country, is on the point of being overwhelmed by the number of serious cases that they need to deal with. And I think the feeling is that if the health service in the richest, best organized part of the country can't cope, then absolutely they can't afford the virus to spread and get a hold in the center and the south, where the health service is much more primitive and where in a short time it could be in real difficulty. And clearly in the north, the hospitals on the front line are in great difficulty. And if the numbers continue to grow at the rate they've been growing up to now, there will be a very serious crisis.
All right, correspondent Philip Willen speaking to us from Rome. Thank you for that update. Germany has recorded its first deaths from the coronavirus. The 2 victims died in the western state of North Rhine-Westphalia, where around 50% of cases are located. Germany has also imposed its first mass quarantine in a small town not far from Berlin. Teachers at a local school had contact with a woman who later tested positive for the coronavirus. The federal health ministry has called for all gatherings of more than 1,000 people to be canceled across Germany. The government has also agreed on an aid package for businesses. All right, DW's Nina Haza is covering Germany's approach towards the coronavirus. So she's with us here in studio. Hi, Nina.
Hi.
Italy, as we've seen, has essentially put the entire country on lockdown. And if you look at the messaging from Germany's health minister, we keep hearing, make sure you wash your hands and avoid contact where you can. I mean, is Germany not taking this seriously enough?
Well, they're saying that you always have to look at both sides and to see what measures are really necessary. And they are appealing to people's common sense. They are saying reduce your social contact as much as possible, wash your hands, adhere to basic hygiene, etc. But what they also did was issue an official recommendation to not hold those mass gatherings of more than 1,000 people. And that was definitely a change in tone by the German health ministry. And we've just found out, by the way, that, for example, one of the top Bundesliga games will now be played behind closed doors. So for a football-crazy nation like Germany, this is a massive step.
We've heard that there is a coronavirus hotspot that's been detected just outside of Berlin. How is this being handled?
Well, apparently a woman from Berlin who was tested positive for the coronavirus went to that small town of Neustadt and had contact with some 20 people there. She was later tested positive for corona. And so now some 2,250 people are in quarantine at home. People from that school, employees, teachers, pupils, but also their relatives. And the authorities say that they have to stay at home. Schools are closed until they are sure that the virus hasn't spread.
Can you give us an idea of the overall picture in Germany? How quick is the virus spreading here?
Well, the government body that is in charge of disease prevention and public health reported this morning, actually, that Germany now has a registered number of 1,139 cases in Germany, which means that the numbers have risen again. They said again this morning that here in Germany we're at the beginning of the epidemic, which also explains why the measures aren't quite as drastic as in Italy yet, because they're saying we're probably about a week behind Italy, which gives the German healthcare system a bit of an advantage. People have a bit more time to prepare. Just take Berlin, for example, a special testing facility, a special location was set up here at a major clinic in Berlin to keep patients apart. So that is definitely an advantage for the healthcare system, which they say is important to make sure that the virus doesn't spread anymore any further and that the infection rate can be kept low. They say that 4 out of 5 people will probably have mild symptoms, even if the numbers increase drastically. But that now all efforts have to be concentrated on protecting the most vulnerable of groups. And a German man died in Egypt a few days ago, and on Monday we saw the first 2 deaths of corona-related deaths on German soil. Those were elderly patients with previous medical conditions.
All right, DW's Nina Haza, thank you so much. Well, the global coronavirus outbreak is having a major impact on schooling around the world as more countries begin a series of school shutdowns. At least 13 countries have closed schools nationwide, and 9 others have implemented local shutdowns. In Japan, nearly all schools have been closed since the 2nd of March. The government offered financial support to parents, but even so, the closures have added to the burden on working parents who now have to make arrangements for taking care of their children during the day.
6-year-old Leo Ishii is learning to play the piano. His 49-year-old father is trying to concentrate. Welcome to working life during a school shutdown.
It's not just me. Several of my colleagues are also concerned about how to look after their children. It's good my company allows work from home, but at first, I didn't know how to look after my son all day. I was all over the place.
Easy to see how this could strain even the strongest of paternal bonds. It's a dilemma shared by millions of working parents across Japan. How to entertain their energetic offspring on a working day.
I'm concerned about the impact on my son's daily life.
Recruitment consultant and mother of 2, Mayumi, has found a more peaceful way to cope. Her company is offering employees a chance to use spare rooms as classrooms. The flexible setup allows her to focus on her own tasks while checking homework, and it's alleviated her initial fears about the school closures.
I said to myself, no, that's not possible. Was this really going to happen in my town? What's going to happen to us? I was full of concerns.
Given the measures are intended to stop children spreading the virus, such policies may come to look unwise. So too the decision of daycare centres like this one in Tokyo to extend its opening hours. Staff insist children are kept apart and their temperatures measured on arrival. But that's of limited help in combating a virus that can be spread when carriers don't have symptoms.
The daycare centre helps me a lot. My company has suddenly asked all employees to work from home, and I'm not used to that. But the daycare centre called us and said they would open from morning.
A huge help for struggling parents, but public health officials say it could undermine national efforts to contain the virus.
Olympic officials in Japan say this year's Summer Games are a way to showcase how the country has bounced back since the 2011 earthquake and the following tsunami that killed 30,000 people and also caused the Fukushima nuclear meltdown. But with the Games only 4 months away, one part of that recovery, the Japanese economy, is now looking uncertain.
For now, the Olympic Games are still on the schedule, despite fears over the coronavirus. Officials say the event is a way to show off how far Japan has come since the Fukushima nuclear disaster, which marks its 9th anniversary this week. The Japan Center for Economic Research puts the cost of Fukushima's cleanup at $660 billion, and the government is eager to highlight its progress. We would like to use this opportunity as much as possible to show our gratitude, and we want to show to the world that the disaster-hit areas are recovering. But the Games are also meant to happen at a time where Japan's economic recovery is on thin ice. New numbers show the Japanese economy shrank more than expected in the final quarter of 2019, contracting by 7.1%. Those figures don't yet take into account the blow dealt by the coronavirus to Japan's export-led economy. There are fears it could push Japan into a future recession while potentially canceling what was supposed to be a showcase for Japan's comeback. But officials have remained steadfast.
At this time, we are not thinking about canceling or postponing the Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics at all. So there is no truth in suggestions that we are considering measures if that happens. I'm not considering such a thing at all.
This insistence from Japan that they are not even discussing backup or contingency plans comes as events around the world have been canceled or postponed. Greece barred fans from attending the lighting of the Olympic torch later this week. If they push through, the 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympic Games are set to open in 4 months.